Hey, we are live. Time flies. So, welcome back, everyone. This is Women in Rabbinic Law and Narrative with Dr. Shana Strauch Schick. As a reminder to those joining us here on Zoom, I will be sending you an invitation to become a panelist. That will not obligate you to do anything. It will not take anything away from you. You will just get more features. You'll be able to come into the room, share your camera with us if you would like, so we could see, smiling face, reacting face, and you'll be able to mute and unmute yourself when we have time for questions, discussion, any sort of participation. Of course, you're also more than welcome to type questions, comments, thoughts, ideas into the chat here on Zoom. If you're joining us on Facebook, you can put your questions and comments in the comment section directly below this video, and I'll take a peek now and then so that you can be part of the discussion too. And without further ado, Dr. Schick, please.
Thank you so much. It's nice to see everyone again. I just put on the chat the sources. It's the same ones from last week, so you still have them and you're good. So we're going to be continuing what we've been doing the past 3 weeks. So just to review, we've been discussing different ways that the Bavli exempts or excludes women in its legal discourse. We mentioned that the first way is if there's a debate in a Tanaitic text or the Mishnah, the Eretz Yisrael text will follow the inclusive view, while the Bavli will follow the exclusionary one. The one we focused on was we then saw how the Bavli modifies or adds to an inclusive Eretz Yisrael tradition. So we saw, where the Tosefta include its list of people who are in various states of the Tumah and purities, and there were women on the group. When the Bavli recorded that same tradition, the list entirely consisted of males in various states of ritual impurity. And then we saw last week where the Mishnah presents one exclusionary view, the Yerushalmi challenges the exclusionary ruling while the Bavli accepts it. So that we analyzed in the case of women's exemption from reciting the Shema. So the Mishnah had said, we saw, I don't know why this isn't working, but we saw the Mishnah has, the Mishnah said, I'm not sure why the slideshow isn't working. The Mishnah said that women are exempt from Shema. It says the Mishnah listed things women are obligated in and those things which women are exempt in. So it said women, slaves, and children are exempt from the recitation of Shema and wearing tefillin, phylacteries, and obligated in tefillah, mezuzah, birkat hamazon, obligated in prayer, hanging mezuzah on the door, and saying grace after meals. And the Bavli, it accepted this ruling. It said, it did say why the Mishnah have to say it, but it maintains the rulings of the Mishnah. Whereas we saw the Yerushalmi cited two Amoraim from the land of Israel who challenged women's exemption from Shema. And we saw they possibly even challenged it in a way which seems to indicate that they might think women have an obligation in the Torah aggadic. And we saw that not only does the Yerushalmi not resolve their challenge, but in a much later text, in its reformulation of the Mishnah, we saw that Shema was included in the list of things that women are obligated in. We saw that in that later text, Masechet Sofrim, which is a post-Talmudic text, 8th or 9th century. So, it seems clear that more in inclusive view persisted in the land of Israel, even well after the Talmudic period. So what I want to do today, or tonight if you're in Israel, is look at the continuation of the same sugya in the Sechet Brachot, which deals with the last mitzvah, the last obligation that's listed in this Mishnah, which is Birkat HaMazon. And in analyzing this part of the sugya, we are going to see that it actually conforms or has aspects of all three of these patterns that we have already seen in the ways that the Bavli exempts or excludes women from its legal discourse. Okay, if I stop the share and restart it, it will work. So let me try that again. So we're going to go now in the source sheets. You know what? I'm having a problem with this. So let me try. I will share the source sheet with you all. Okay. Hold on a second. Sorry. I don't know. I'm having a problem with my computer right now. Not sure why my sharing feature isn't working so well. Noah, would you be able to share the source sheet? Just mine seems my sharing feature is not working so well.
Right. Do you want it shared as a Google Doc, or I can't open the docx on my computer? But
okay, wait. So let me try to open this source sheet. I don't know why I'm just sorry everyone. I'm having so much trouble with my okay.
Is it this one that we're looking for?
Yeah, at least that way. Okay, so everyone see that? There we go. Okay, so we're gonna go to, can you just scroll down a little bit more?
Should say when.
Okay, keep going. This is what we saw last time. Okay, so we are here. Actually, yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Can you go up a little bit again? So I just want to go over the mission that we saw last time. Keep going up. Keep going up. I'm sorry. I know you already did this.
No, it's all right. It's just it got screwed up importing it to Google Docs. So
no, it's great. Okay, so here you can stop here. So we saw the Mishnah said, "Nashim v'avadim u'ketanim b'turim kriyat Shema mitzvilin." We saw women, slaves, and children are exempt from reciting Shema, wearing phylacteries, but chayav mitzvilin mezuzah b'birkat hamazon, but are obligated in prayer, hanging a mezuzah on their door, and in saying grace after meals. So, we see women are obligated in prayer, mezuzah, and grace after meals, the obligation of birkat hamazon. And in the sugya that we're going to look at on this part of the Mishnah, it is specifically about one's ability to make the birkat hamazon blessing on behalf of other people. Now, this is contingent on a rule elsewhere that said in the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah 3:8, there that offers a general rule that whoever is not obligated in a matter cannot fulfill the obligation on behalf of others. Meaning you can only perform a mitzvah on behalf of someone else if you have an equal or more obligation. So therefore, only someone who is obligated to blow and hear the shofar on Rosh Hashanah can blow the shofar on behalf of other people. Okay, so that's a general rule here. And as we saw, the Mishnah in Brachot includes women in the obligation in Birkat HaMazon. Women are obligated in Birkat HaMazon, in grace after meals. So, and it doesn't seem to indicate that women's obligation in blessing after meals is any less than that of men. So it should therefore follow that women may recite Birkat HaMazon, grace after meals, on behalf of a man. That would seem to follow. And yet, when we go to look at the Tosefta, in this case, it's actually a little ambiguous on the matter. So, would you mind just scrolling down, Noah? Okay, so we get the Tosefta. It's after this box. Okay, do you see where I am? Okay, so the Tosefta there reads, Nashim ve'avadim ukitanim piturim, women, slaves, and children are exempt from reciting grace after meals, ve'ein motzi'in et harabim yidei chovatam, and they do not fulfill the public's obligation. Now, this Tosefta is somewhat strange for many reasons. First of all, we've seen that Tosefta in general tends to obligate women in things more than Mishnah, but fine, that's not the biggest deal. But here, it's outright contradicts the Mishnah, because the Mishnah was very clear that women actually are obligated in Birkat Hamazon. For this and other reasons, when Shaul Lieberman, in his Tosefta Kipshuto, it's his addition of the Tosefta along with his notes and comments on it, he actually noted that Peturin these words here, Peturin, Nanashim v'avazim ukitanim Peturim ve'emotzin chovatan. These words Peturin and the were in all likelihood erroneously placed into a passage, because there are other Tosefta passages, other Tosefta texts, which contain the phrase Nashim v'avadim ukitanim peturin women, slaves, and children are exempt. And for example, Tosefta Rosh Hashanah 2:5 with regard to shofar, it says women, slaves, and children are exempt from the shofar. So he suggests that the original Tosefta actually, it should not have said that women, slaves, and children are exempt from Birkat Hamazon. And that's evidence from the fact that the Mishnah explicitly obligates women in Birkat Hamazon. And in fact, only 3 passages earlier in the Tosefta, it actually says, Hakol chayavim b'Birkat Hamazon. Everyone, Hakol, all are obligating in blessing after meals. And it doesn't say there except for women and slaves and children. And further evidence that this seems to be kind of a mistaken text of the Tosefta is the fact that the second clause of the Tosefta, what does it say? So let's look at this. Make this a little bigger because I can't see. It says, Be'emet amru, isha mevarech ba'ala, ve'mevarech la'aviv, ve'mevarech la'abo. In truth, they said a woman blesses on behalf of her husband, a son blesses on behalf of his father, a slave blesses on behalf of his master. And so if women, slaves, and children were indeed exempt, as this first line there says, then that wouldn't make sense that they could bless on behalf of anyone, not even their husband's master or father, etc. So it does seem compelling that Peturim should not be here. Okay, so that's why I put it into a brackets to make that clear. So what then is the correct text? The text should say, Nashim v'avadim ukitanim in motzin et harabin yedei chovatam. Women, slaves, and minors do not fulfill the obligation of the rabbim, of the many, of the public. So something that we saw earlier when it came to a Torah reading. So this looks something a lot more similar to what the Tosefta said with regard to women and Torah reading, meaning technically allowed to have the obligation, but they don't do it for the many, for the public. Again, maybe it's an issue of propriety, it's or an issue of, it's an issue of being too public, or not, I don't want to add, that Bavli concept of it's not kavod latzibor, it's not in the dignity of the congregation. Maybe it's just not something that women back then, or slaves or children, would have done in such a public manner. So they can't, or they don't fulfill the public's obligation. But be'emet amru, but in truth they said, Isha mevarechet leba'ala, a woman can bless for her husband, a son can bless for his father, a slave can bless for his master. So, is a contrast public doing it for many people as opposed to doing it for one person? They don't make the blessing for many people, but they can make it for one person. And why does it say husband, master, and slave, and father and master? Because that's just who they would most likely be with. Or is it about these individuals? Maybe they can't do it for the public. A lot of people, it's not proper for them to do it for, non-relatives, not someone for the public, people they don't have a relationship with. But it is appropriate for them to be able to bless for someone with whom they do have a close relationship. Judith Houtman has suggested that it's about it's about propriety and doing what's proper. So if they have a close relationship with the person, like a father, husband, owner, then that's okay. That's proper, but it's improper to do so in a public manner on behalf of other people. Whatever the explanation, however you read these two clauses, it is clear that a woman may technically fulfill the obligation of reciting Birkat Hamazon for someone else, since the obligation is equally incumbent upon all, just like the Mishnah said. However, for reasons of, it would seem, propriety, it's not done in certain scenarios. So that's the Tosefta. Now we're going to see that this Tosefta tradition and discussion surrounding it appears in both Talmuds on our Mishnah in Brachot 3.3. However, we're going to see once again significant differences between the two Talmuds, the Bavli and the Yerushalmi, that are going to run along the lines we have seen thus far. So let's go to the Yerushalmi's discussion of this Tosefta tradition, and it's found at the end of the sugya on the Mishnah Brachot 3.3 that we were looking at before, and it's also found in the Yerushalmi and Rosh Hashanah 3.10. And it's very common for the Yerushalmi to have identical sugyot. They just kind of like copy and pasted it, from different places. Now, I am going to be citing from the Rosh Hashanah sugya in this case, because it seems to be a better version of the discussion. I mean, there's some things left out in the sugya in Brachot. Okay, so let's look at the Yerushalmi as it appears in Rosh Hashanah. And again, it's really the parallel that's found in Brachot 3.3. So, what does it say here? Tani, it was taught, and Tani indicates it's taught in Tanaitic tradition, a tradition from the time of the Mishnah and Tosefta. So what does it say? Aval amru, they said, Isha mivarech leba'ala, eved lerabo, katan le'aviv. So they said, a woman may recite the blessing, and we know it's talking about grace after meals for her husband, a slave for his master, a child for his father. Okay, so we know, what's that line? That's the second line of the Tosefta. Okay, so that's A. Now let's continue in B. Nicha isha mivarecha leva'ala. Granted, a woman can say the blessing on behalf of her husband. And Eved, there's just a good point. I'm just going to stop for a second. Each of those relationships suggests a dependence. Yeah, I mean, that This is the Tosefta. I mean, the Yerushalmi is citing the second line of the Tosefta. Noah, would you mind just scrolling up a little bit? And yeah, maybe that could be, just go up a little more. Yeah, sorry, that's it. Yud Azayin. So as we said, I mean, that could be a difference between the first line and the second line. They can't bless on behalf of other people. Who can they bless on behalf of? Maybe it's people with whom they are dependent, although you would think maybe the opposite. Why should they be able to bless on behalf of someone whom they are dependent on? But it's possible that could be, what the common denominator is. Or again, it could be these are people that they have a close relationship with. Meaning, like, they can't make the blessing on behalf of the public, of going for like a lot of people, making the blessing on behalf of people they don't have a close relationship, of a large group. Maybe it's not a proper, but if it's someone they have a close relationship with, then they can say Birkat Hamazon on their behalf. I mean, now maybe you can say these are people who have a possessive relationship over them. So, I mean, you can kind of think of a logic here. So why would they be able to say Birkat Hamazon on their behalf? Maybe since they, I was pointing out, it's almost like the public can't benefit from the time of a slave. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what it's about. It's not clear. I mean, I do think it's reasonable to say it's not a proper, maybe, for them to be in the public. But if it's in more a private with someone they are close with, then it's okay. Or again, maybe it's just about a person. It's about many people, the Rabbin versus one person. And it's just, who is a one person a slave is likely to be with? His master. Right. I mean, or is it about these are people who have some sort of ownership? Is that significant? I think that those are all good points, and that could be what the common denominator is. Now we'll talk about the Yerushalmi, full citation of this in a moment. But anyway, so the Yerushalmi cites this line that the Yerushalmi begins with the second line of the Tosefta, okay, and then it analyzes it. So what does it say? Nicha isha mevarecha levala. Now, granted, we get that makes sense that a woman can say Birkat Hamazon on behalf of her husband. Naomi has a good point. Can a single woman say it on behalf of her brother? Right, meaning, it's specifically husband, master, father, or is this a din it's about one person? It doesn't even, and maybe someone, one person they have to be close with, maybe they don't even have to be close. Maybe it's just about numbers. In which case, if it's about someone they're close with, then certainly a brother would be fine. If it's about just one person, it doesn't matter who the one person is. They're just saying the people who they are likely to have been around with. It's not specifically husband, spouse. Husband, master, father. These are all really excellent points. So I'm going to the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi continues. Yeah, it makes sense that a woman can make the blessing for her husband, and Eved Lerabo, and then a master can make the Birkat Hamazon, can say Birkat Hamazon on behalf of their slaves. But Katan Le'aviv? But can a child say Birkat Hamazon on behalf of his father? And Lo Kenamar Rabbi Acha b'Shem Rabbi Yossi ben Horai. Didn't Rabbi Acha say in the name of Rabbi Yossi ben Horai, Kol Shamar B'Katan Kedei Lechancho? Whenever we say by a child, it's not because they have an obligation. Children do not have religious obligations. Why do we say children should do things? What does Kedei Lechancho mean? It's for chinuch. It's to teach them. Meaning, children don't actually have obligations. They're not obligated to do mitzvot. Why do we have children observe mitzvot? To teach them. Because if we don't have to do it when they're young, they're not going to know to do it when they're older, or they're not going to want to do it when they're older, or they won't know to do it when they're older. So why does it matter? It's so So why does it matter that's only mishum chinuch? We're only having children do mitzvot to teach them. That means they don't have a true obligation. What did we say? Only one who has an equal or more obligation can perform a mitzvah on behalf of someone else. So if a child is only saying Birkat Hamazon because of a chinuch to teach them, that means they don't have an obligation. That means they can't say it on behalf of an adult who does have a full obligation. So the Yerushalmi is troubled by the Katan. The Tosefta a statement with regard to a minor, because it doesn't make sense. According to halacha, a child should not be able to say Birkat Hamazon on behalf of an adult. The Yerushalmi, however, has no problem with the statement about a woman saying it for her husband and a slave saying it for a master. So Yerushalmi resolves this problem in D. Tiftar bona achrehem. You can resolve this by saying the child isn't really saying Birkat Hamazon for the parent. Rather, the parent is saying Amen. So the child isn't really saying it for them, or it's not necessarily Amen. One text answered, or maybe the father's repeating after the child. So we were troubled. The Yerushalmi was troubled by the Toseftas in occlusion of the child and found a way to resolve it. And now it's going to bring a proof for this resolution. Kehi de taninan taman. It's like that which we taught there, and there is Mishnah Sukkah 3:10. What does it say in Mishnah Sukkah? Mishaya eved o isha kata makrinoto. Someone who has a slave, a woman, or a child read for them, meaning this is referring to Hallel. If an adult man does not know Hallel, he can have a woman, slave, woman, or child recite the Hallel for them. And then they just repeat what the man then repeats, the woman, child, or slave, what they are saying. But tehelo me'ira. But this should be a shame for him. It's a curse for him, meaning you should know how to say Hallel. You shouldn't need a woman or child or slave to recite Hallel for you. But actually, I was just even saying more, and I should just actually scratch what I just said. Utihilo me'era. What does the Yerushalmi say? Not what I just said. Sorry. It says, Tabo me'era leben esrim shesarich lechu eser. Who should have a curse come to him? A 20-year-old who needs a 10-year-old to recite for him. So it's actually very interesting what the Yerushalmi does. Can you just scroll down a little bit? More, please. Keep going. Sorry. Keep going. We have this Mishnah in Sukkah. Here it is. The Mishnah in Sukkah says, Misha eved o isha o kata makrino to'onach rehem mashin omrim. So someone who has a woman, slave, or child read Hallel for them, they should repeat what they say. Utihilo me'era. And it should be a curse for him. So how does the Yerushalmi read this clause, Tehilo me'era? It's not what I originally said. If you need a child or woman or slave to read for you, that's really shameful. Rather, the Yerushalmi seems only read Utehilo me'era on the child clause. So it's like a bracket in child, and to have this line Tehilo me'era is only referring to needing a child. It's only the fact. It is only a shameful. It's only a qualifying having a child recite Hallel for him, not woman or slave. That's one striking feature of the Yerushalmi. Another striking feature of the Yerushalmi is that we saw the Tosefta had two lines. Sorry, would you mind scrolling up again, Noah? Sorry, no, scrolling back up to the Tosefta before this sugya. We saw the Tosefta said two things. Just go a little more. Yeah, there you go. Go back down. There you go. The Tosefta has two lines. The first line says, Nashim avadim uketanim, motzin et radim yedei chovatam, and b'metzim rishon lebala, etc. So it's very striking that the Yerushalmi only cites the second clause of the Tosefta. In a truth, they said, a woman blesses on behalf of her husband, ikes hetera. The first clause of the Tosefta, which frowns upon some aspects of the practice, does not appear in the Yerushalmi. And I also want to point out a third striking thing is that the Tosefta tradition is only challenged in the Yerushalmi vis-a-vis the child's ability to perform the obligation on behalf of others. No issue is raised with regard to a woman or slave's ability to do so. And this is said straight out in line B of the discussion, where it says, Nicha Isha. Yeah, we get women. Yeah, for sure, that makes sense. Women can say Birkat Mazon for her husband, slave can say Birkat Mazon on behalf of their master. And indeed, in the Yerushalmi, there is no limit placed on women's ability to fulfill this obligation on behalf of others, as we saw the first clause of the Tosefta indicates. And I just want to say again, even as Yerushalmi cites Mishnah Sukkah 3:10, which places a curse upon it, which seems, when you read it, it looks like it's placing a curse. Can you just scroll down to that again, Noah? It places a curse on a man who needs a woman slave or minor to recite Halal for him. In the Yerushalmi, that curse is only explained or is only directed at a man who needs a child or an adult who needs a child to recite Halal for him. And in other words, it's only shameful for a 20-year-old who needs a 10-year-old to recite the prayer for him, but not for a woman to recite Halal for him. So this might indicate, and I think it does, that the Yerushalmi's, editors, the redactors of Yerushalmi, read the clause of Mishnah Sukkah concerning the curse as only referring to the last group mentioned. Can you just go down again? Sorry, scroll down a little more. You see in the Mishnah Sukkah, Katan, right here, it says, Michaya Evero Isha O Katan Makrinoto. So Katan, the child, was the last one mentioned. So that is who the curse is directed at. So the curse is only directed at the last one mentioned, the minor, but not to the other groups mentioned, women or slaves. So we don't know were the redactors of the Yerushalmi aware of both clauses, no problem, of the Tosefta, or did they consciously choose to leave it out and therefore only brought the second clause? We don't know, but either way, the effect is the same. The halacha, as presented in the Yerushalmi, considers women as fully obligated in Birkat Hamazon, which therefore means that in the Yerushalmi, women can completely make the blessing on behalf of other people. And in the Yerushalmi, there's no limits placed on this. And this correlates with what we have already seen, which is the tendency found in the Yerushalmi to side with the inclusive view that's found in a Tanaitic text with regard to women's obligation. So just to review that, we saw that the Tosefta, it did have a bit of an ambiguity with regard to, it had some sort of a limit placed on women's obligation to make Birkat Hamazon on behalf of others. And we look in the Yerushalmi Sugya, that is gone. It only presented the clause which said, women can make the blessing on behalf of her husband. And we saw that where there's a Mishnah which seems to frown upon an adult man who needs a woman to read Hallel for him, it's really it's a frame that only within the context of the child and does not read that as referring to him needing a woman to say Hallel for him, and therefore Birkat Hamazon. So the Yerushalmi Sugya, its only a question is really about the child's ability to fulfill the obligation for others and the problem that opposes. Okay, so that's the Yerushalmi. When we turn to the Bavli, however, a very different picture emerges. And whereas the Yerushalmi is focused on the child's ability and the problems it has with that, the Bavli, unsurprisingly, from all the stuff that we learned, is entirely focused on the question of women's ability to make the blessing on behalf of others. So let's look now at the Bavli Sugya. And this is a continuation of the Sugya we learned last time about Kriyat Shema. So we had seen, the Bavli, it justifies all the halacha that are mentioned in the Mishnah. Kriyat Shema women are exempt. Yeah, that makes sense. Tefillin exempt. Yeah, that makes sense. And then why do they have to say women are obligated in prayer and tefillin and birkat hamazon? Says all the reasons you would have thought otherwise, and why you're wrong. Okay. So now the Gemara continues. It says, now we're in the Bavli, Bracho Chaf Amud Aleph, and what I labeled here A. Amar le Ravina le Rava. Ravina, who is a fifth generation Babylonian Amora, says to Rava, who's a teacher of the fourth generation. What does he ask him? Nashim b'berkat hamazon de oraita o de Rabbanan. When the Mishnah says women are obligated in birkat hamazon, yeah, okay, I get that. But is that obligation a biblical one, or is it of rabbinic origin? Okay, so a question is what frames the entire Bavli Sugya. So first, so then in B, the anonymous Gemara now asks, "Mai nafkamina." What is, literally means what comes out of that? Meaning, what is the practical what a difference does it make? Who cares if it's d'oraita or d'rabbanan? Why do we care if her obligation is biblical or rabbinic? Either way, she has an obligation. So why does it matter? Answers the Gemara. Answers the anonymous stratum. Lafuke Rabim Yedei Chovatan. It matters if it's biblical or rabbinic, because that tells us whether women, they can perform the obligation on behalf of others. So this line, Lafuke Rabim Yedei Chovatan, it's Aramaic. But it's Aramaic for Lehotzi. Motzi, I want to get the Hebrew here. Motzin et Rabim Yedei Chovatan. That word should sound familiar. Those are the words of the Tosefta. So it's the first clause of the Tosefta. The first clause of the Tosefta. I wish I. Can you scroll back up? Why is this so annoying? I'm sorry.
Do you want to try using the remote control feature that should let you jump around as you wish? Let me see if I can.
How do I learn how to do that?
Okay, so I have to deal. Okay, you should be able to give it a try. Let's see.
Nothing's happening.
Just click into the share screen that I have open. You should be able to.
I don't know how to do it.
Okay, I'll just scroll up to.
Hi, everyone. So just to remind you.
Where are we going?
Sorry, just keep going a little more. Yeah, here we go. Nashim avademu kitanim. What do the Tosefta say? Ein motziin et rabin yedei chovatan. They do not fulfill the public's obligation. Sorry, Noah. Back down to the Bavli. So what does the Bavli do? It really cites the Tosefta. It just puts it in Aramaic. So the answer to Rav and Ravina's question is the second line, is the first line of the Tosefta. And so in this way, the Tosefta tradition is introduced. Now, remember, in the Yerushalmi Sugya, this first line of the Tosefta did not appear. Okay, but in the Bavli, we are already seeing a difference. They're both centered around the same Tosefta tradition, but the Yerushalmi only quoted the second line, which didn't have, which says, women can say it on behalf of other people, whereas the Bavli is already starting with the first, more limiting line. Okay. Now, although the Bavli, you wouldn't know that the Bavli is citing a Tosefta, a text here, because it's not calling it that. But the answer for Lamai Nafkamina, the answer for why it matters if the obligation is rabbinic or a biblical one, is the very language of the first clause of the Tosefta. They do not fulfill the obligation of the community. So this indicates that the Bavli discussion here is likely drawing from the first clause of the Tosefta. And I've seen this in other sugyot as well, where the Bavli is cited or drawn from it without explicitly indicating that they are Tanaitic. Anyways, the Gemara then continues. Okay, so and it just explains why does it matter? Why does this resolve? Because if a woman's obligation is biblical, then they can perform the obligation on behalf of others who's also has a biblical obligation, i.e., men. Ella but if the obligation is only rabbinic, then their women's obligation is less than men's. They're not equally obligated. Men are obligated on a biblical level, and if women are only obligated on a rabbinic level, it's not an equal obligation, then women would not be able to fulfill the obligation on behalf of men. Now, no, we didn't see any of this in the Yerushalmi. This is all introduced in the Bavli. Okay, so now the Gemara asks, so what is it? What's the answer? Is it rabbinic or is it biblical? So it answers this question by now citing the Tosefta tradition somewhat. Tashma, come and listen. I know we're trying to scroll down a little bit so people can see the English if they want. Tashma, come and listen. Be'emet amru, in truth they said. Be'mevarech la'aviv, the son blesses for his father. Eved mevarech le'rabo, the master can bless for the servant, slave can bless for his master. Isha mevarech le'ba'ala, and a woman blesses for her husband. Aval amru chachamim, but the sages said, Tavo me'ara la'adam she'ishto uvanav mevarchim lo. But the sages said, let a curse come. Yes, first of all, you're right. Let me just finish that. The sages say, let a curse come for a man who needs his wife and his children to bless for him. So first thing, Alana just noted, you're absolutely right. The order has been switched, and we saw that happen before. We saw that. Where in the Tosefta and Yerushalmi, the woman was first on the list. When it was in the Bavli, some of the woman was last. So I said last time, maybe it's a coincidence, but when we see this happen, multiple times, it looks like maybe it's not a coincidence. And again, if that's how the tradition was just transmitted in Babylonia, that's still significant. So first of all, we're seeing the order switched. Because in both, again, the original Tosefta as well as the Yerushalmi citation of the Tosefta, the women were listed first, the order there being women, minor, slave. Whereas in the Bavli, the minors first, and women has been bumped to last. Okay, but, and again, we saw this with regard to Torah reading. But what's more significant is what has been added to the tradition. Did we see these words about Amru Chachamim Tavo Me'aral Adam Shishto Banav Mevarchim Bo? That line does not exist in the Tosefta tradition. But we did see that. Where did we see those words before? Noah, can you scroll back up again to that Mishnah in Sukkah? Right here. What did the Mishnah in Sukkah say? someone who needs their slave, wife, or child to say hallel for them, fine, do it, repeat after them. But Tahi lo me'era. But, curse on you who needs, who needs this. Now, we saw in the Yerushalmi curse is a 20-year-old who needs a 10-year-old to do this for him. And it was only about the child. But in the Bavli, this line, first of all, has been added to the Tosefta. It's presented as if it's part of the original Tosefta tradition. It's added quite seamlessly. It's all in Hebrew. If it's in Hebrew, that gives it the impression that it's a Tannaitic tradition. And we also see that whereas in the Yerushalmi, that curse was only directed to one who needed a child to read for them. Now in the Bavli, it's saying straight out, it's also directed at one who needs a woman to say Birkat Hamazon for him. Now, again, it is possible that, so either this is being added to the Tosefta tradition, or it is possible that this just represents a Tannaitic tradition which we no longer have, that was only preserved in the Bavli, which is possible. However, it's very much echoes the Bavli's formulation of the Tosefta tradition we saw with regard to Torah reading. Let me see if I can share my screen just to show you this. Let me see if these work. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Just make this bigger. Okay. So we had seen this last time. Okay, so this was in the Tosefta. Everyone can be called up for an aliyah to read from the Torah, even a child and even a woman. And remember, we saw in the Tosefta the order was a switch, as Alana pointed out. And then what do we saw that was not in the Tosefta? But the sages said a woman should not read from the Torah because of due to the dignity of the congregation. And again, that line was not in the Tosefta. That was only in the Bavli. And what's our addition here? Tashma, but that's ben aviv, so again, save for the order switch, that is the same as the Tosefta. A child blesses for his father, slave blesses for master, woman blesses for husband. But the sages say, it's the same exact language here. Tavo mera ladam shishto uvanav mibarchem lo. Let a curse come to one who needs his wife and children to bless for him. So the fact that they just are formulated in such a similar way, it does look like some sort of pattern here. So again, both report the first line of the Tosefta and reverse the order. Both we have so both, meaning in both first line are, except for the order, are the same as appear in our Tosefta. And in both, that second line is wholly absent from the Tosefta and is unique to the Bavli, and it opens with the same formula. In truth, the rabbis say, which is a kind of an introductory statement, which is more of an indication of an attitude being expressed rather than a cut and dry legal statement. Both second lines also present broad exclusions of women that are lacking in the Tosefta. So these therefore do look like it's I guess an intentional reworking of an earlier Tosefta tradition. So now can I share my thing now? Let me see if I can share. Still isn't working. Okay. Setting. Okay. So the fact that this is an instance of a larger pattern in which the Bavli does very similar things suggests that the reformulation of this tradition is not just a response to an exegetical concern. Like I read one article where someone said, maybe the Bavli is only doing this as a way to reconcile the two contradictory clauses of the Tosefta. Noah, would you mind just sharing the text again? Oh, there you go. Okay, right. Meaning, go to the Tosefta. Yeah, a little more. Yeah, here we go. So I read, someone said, maybe the Bavli, its goal is just to reconcile. Well, why does the first clause say, and the second line says, well, women can bless for her husband. So the Bavli's, that's its only agenda. It's just an exegetical agenda to reconcile these two contradictory clauses of the Tosefta. If this were the only instance of this pattern, then I'd say fine. But the fact that we see that the Bavli do very similar things in all the cases we examined together, it does seem to reflect a certain recurrent interest in relegating traditions that are more inclusive of women in mitzvot. So, to sum up, what we've seen these last 3 weeks, I don't think there's anything else. Can you just scroll down? I think that is. Great, just make sure there's another source down there to see. Okay, so I just want to sum up what we've seen these past 3 weeks is that we have seen a consistent picture in the Bavli and text from Eretz Yisrael. So text from Eretz Yisrael, we have seen, present a far more inclusive approach with regard to women's involvement in mitzvot than does the Bavli. And we've also seen that this inclusive approach is not just found in early texts, but we've seen its evidence throughout all stages of Eretz Yisrael text. We saw from Tana aggadic in the Tosefta. We saw also in Midrash Halacha that the Sifrei obligated women in tzitzit. We saw through Amoraim. We saw Amoraim from the land of Israel a challenge. Why are women exempt from saying Shema? And we even saw it in post-Talmudic works. We saw in Masechet Sofrim women being obligated in Shema. In several cases, and not just one, we saw third generation Amoraim from Eretz Yisrael espouse the inclusive Tanaitic approach. So we saw Reb Hila with regard to tzitzit, or we saw them challenge the exclusive Tanaitic position, like Reb Yossi and Reb Yehuda ben Apazi regarding Shema. We also, we'll see another time. This demonstrates that there was a geographical divide in the approach to women's involvement in mitzvot. We saw the Bavli, by contrast, repeatedly excludes women from obligation in various mitzvot, and we saw that it employs recurring strategies in doing so. The fact that these patterns are manifest in a number of sugyot dealing with women's obligations demonstrate that these aren't just isolated exegetical moves, but it's rather a reflection of a larger orientation. Now we are going to see that when we start looking at some narrative texts, we are going to see that the Bavli is aware of this approach that they are taking, along with the alternative perspectives. Meaning, we're going to see that there was an awareness that in Eretz Yisrael there was a more inclusive approach, and we're going to see how they engage these alternative possibilities as they reflect on their exclusionary dance. So what I want to do next week is look at a really fascinating sugya on the obligation of a procreation. And once again, we're going to see a pattern of Eretz Yisrael, the Eretz Yisrael text obligating women in this obligation, whereas the Bavli going with the exclusionary view. However, we're going to see how the Bavli incorporates the Eretz Yisrael approach in a very long sugya, and how it's able to both follow the Eretz Yisrael approach, but also relegating it to very specific cases. So thank you all so much. Sorry for those few technical challenges we were having. Gotta see what's going on with my PowerPoint. And if anyone has any questions, we do have time for a few questions.
So you can feel free to unmute, or if you're more comfortable raising a hand. I know this is also a very chatty group, so you can take a moment to type something out.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much.
Okay, I'll give another moment if folks are typing those questions. Let them come in and say thank you, Dr. Schick. As always, it's been phenomenal. And thank you to everyone for participating. Very interesting questions that really enrich the learning experience. And we do have more and more classes upcoming. We have 7 more classes remaining this week. One tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is exploring minim, heretics in the Babylonian Talmud. And then we have 6 tomorrow. I'm not going to list them all. You can learn about them on our website. All roads currently redirect to 5783.drisha.org, but if you type in just drisha.org, you'll wind up there anyhow.
Thank you all so much. And I just want to say, if anyone has any questions, I just put my email address on. So I'm really happy to hear any questions or comments that you might have. You're welcome to email me again.
Okay. So with that, I look forward to learning with everyone again next week, or sooner for those of you who will be joining us sooner, but picking up with this learning again next week. And everyone be well.
Thank you all so
Good night,
much.
Dr. Schick.
Have a great day. Let's see what's up with my PowerPoint. What's going on with that?
It happens. Good luck and Godspeed.
Have a great day. Good rest of your week.